Dr. Kethra pressed her four-fingered hands against the observation glass and watched the human sleep. The creature lay curled on its side in the climate-controlled chamber, its chest rising and falling in a slow rhythm. It looked so fragile, so ordinary. And yet, the data on her tablet told a very different story. "Are you certain these readings are correct?" she asked her assistant, Vorn, who stood behind her with his antennae twitching nervously. "I have checked them 17 times, Doctor. The results are the same each time." Kethra looked down at the numbers again. In her 300 years of studying life forms across the galaxy, she had never seen anything like this. The Galactic Council had asked her team to study humans after first contact was made 6 months ago. The small blue planet called Earth had been dismissed by most species as unimportant. Its people had only recently discovered space travel. They were considered primitive by galactic standards. But Kethra was not most people. She was the lead researcher at the Institute for Biological Studies on Vela Prime, and she had noticed something strange in the early reports, something that did not fit the usual patterns. Now, after months of careful study, she finally understood what she was looking at. "Call an emergency meeting of the Science Council," she said quietly. "They need to see this." The human in the chamber stirred slightly, then settled back into sleep. His name was Marcus Chen, a volunteer who had agreed to be studied in exchange for learning about alien technology. He was 32 years old, in average health for his species, and completely unaware that he had just become the most important scientific discovery in recorded galactic history. 3 days later, Kethra stood before the Science Council in their great hall on Vela Prime. The room was filled with representatives from over 50 species. Some had scales, others had feathers. Some floated in liquid spheres, and others existed as clouds of intelligent gas. All of them had come to hear what she had to say. "Distinguished colleagues," Kethra began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I have spent my career studying the biological adaptations of sentient species. Each species has its own special abilities. The Vornak can survive in extreme cold. The Pelty can go without food for months. The crystalline beings can repair their bodies by absorbing minerals. Every species is good at something." She pressed a button on her tablet, and a holographic image of a human appeared in the center of the room. "Humans are different. They are not the best at anything. They cannot survive the coldest temperatures. They cannot go the longest without food. They cannot repair their bodies as quickly as some species can." A Vornak counselor made a dismissive sound. "Then why are we here? The galaxy has no shortage of mediocre species." "Because, counselor," Kethra replied, "humans are not mediocre. They are something far more dangerous. They are adaptable." She changed the display to show a series of graphs and charts. "Let me explain what I mean. Most species evolved to excel in one environment. The Vornak evolved in freezing conditions. Place a Vornak in a desert and it will die within hours. The Falcon evolved in desert conditions. Place one on an ice world and it will freeze in minutes. This is normal. This is how evolution works." She pointed at the human image. "Humans evolved on a planet with every type of environment. They have hot deserts and frozen poles. They have thick jungles and open oceans. They have high mountains and deep valleys. And somehow, without any special biological features, humans have learned to survive in all of them." The room was quiet now. Kethra continued. "When we first studied Marcus Chen, I expected to find a creature with average abilities across the board. What I found instead was something I cannot fully explain. His body does not have specialized adaptations. Instead, it has something more valuable. It has the ability to create adaptations on demand." She showed the council her research data. "When we placed Marcus in a cold environment, his body began to change within hours. His blood vessels narrowed to preserve heat. His metabolism increased to generate warmth. His body started producing more insulating fat. These changes happened automatically, without any conscious effort on his part." When we moved him to a hot environment, the opposite happened. His sweat glands increased their output. His blood vessels widened to release heat. His body adjusted its water retention. Again, all of this happened automatically. Counselor Vethra of the crystalline beings leaned forward. Other species can acclimatize to new environments over time. This is not unusual. You are correct, Kethra said, but the speed of human adaptation is unlike anything we have recorded. Most species take weeks or months to adjust to new conditions. Humans begin adapting within hours, and it goes beyond simple temperature adjustment. She pulled up more data. When we limited Marcus's food supply, his body immediately began to conserve energy. His metabolism slowed. His body started breaking down stored fat. He remained functional even on a fraction of the calories that most species would require. When we changed the oxygen levels in his chamber, his body adjusted its breathing patterns and red blood cell production. When we altered the gravity, his muscles and bones began to strengthen or weaken as needed. When we exposed him to new bacteria, his immune system learned to fight them at a rate that should be impossible. The council members were murmuring among themselves now. Kethra waited for them to quiet down before continuing. But the most remarkable discovery was not physical, it was psychological. She showed them recordings of Marcus during the experiments. We subjected Marcus to various forms of stress. We created unexpected changes in his environment. We presented him with puzzles and problems he had never seen before, and every time he adapted. When he faced problems, he did not give up. He tried different solutions until one worked. When his environment changed, he adjusted his behavior to match. When he was presented with new information, he quickly incorporated it into his understanding of the world. I have studied hundreds of species, Kethra said. Most species have a breaking point. Push them far enough outside their comfort zone and they stop functioning. Their minds cannot handle the stress of constant change. Humans do not seem to have this limitation, or if they do, we could not find it. The Vornak counselor spoke again, his voice no longer dismissive. What you are describing sounds like the theoretical concept of a universal organism, a species that could survive anywhere. Scientists have long believed such a creature was impossible. I thought so too, Kethra admitted. And technically, humans are not universal organisms. They can still die from extreme conditions. They still have limits, but those limits are much, much wider than any other species we have encountered. She pulled up one final image. It showed a map of Earth, marked with the locations of human settlements. Humans live on every continent of their planet. They live in frozen wastelands where temperatures drop below the freezing point of water. They live in deserts where temperatures can kill unprotected individuals within hours. They live in rainforests full of deadly diseases and predators. They live on mountains so high that the air is too thin to breathe properly. They have even built structures underwater and sent individuals into space. And they did all of this without any of the natural advantages that other species possess. They did it through adaptation, through learning, through sheer refusal to accept that something was impossible. The council chamber was silent. Finally, the head of the Science Council, an ancient being named Zelter, spoke. Dr. Kethra, what are the implications of your findings? Kethra took a deep breath. The implications are significant. Humans are a young species. They have only been traveling in space for a very short time. But if my research is correct, they will not remain young and inexperienced for long. Most species expand slowly because they must find worlds that match their biological needs. Humans will have no such limitation. They will be able to colonize worlds that no other species can survive on. They will adapt to conditions that would kill the rest of us. And that is just the beginning. If humans can adapt physically and psychologically to new challenges at the rate I have observed, then their rate of advancement will be unlike anything the galaxy has seen before. They will learn faster, evolve faster and grow faster than any other species. Zelter's many eyes blinked slowly. You are suggesting that humans could become a dominant species in the galaxy. I am suggesting, Kethra said carefully, that we may need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about evolution and survival. I am suggesting that the universe may have just become a very different place. She looked around the council chamber at all the different species gathered there. Each one had evolved over millions of years to become masters of their particular environment. Each one had thought they understood how life worked. None of them had been prepared for humans. The news of Kethra's discovery spread quickly through the galaxy. Within weeks, every major species was demanding more information about humans. Some were curious, some were afraid, and some were already making plans. Marcus Chen woke up in his observation chamber to find Dr. Kethra standing outside the glass, watching him. "Good morning, Marcus," she said through the speaker system. "How did you sleep?" Marcus stretched and yawned. "Pretty well, actually. These experiments are tiring, but I'm getting used to them." Kethra made a note on her tablet, getting used to them. Even now, he was adapting. "Marcus, I need to tell you something important. The Science Council has reviewed my research, and they have decided to classify humans as a Category 1 species." Marcus blinked. "Is that good?" "It means you are considered significant enough to warrant special attention. You are only the third species in galactic history to receive this classification." "Oh," Marcus sat up straighter. "What were the other two?" Kethra hesitated. "One was the species that built the ancient gates that allow faster-than-light travel. They disappeared millions of years ago, and we still do not know what happened to them. The other was the Void Walkers, who almost destroyed half the galaxy in a war before they were stopped." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That's a lot of pressure." "Yes," Kethra agreed. "It is. But I wanted you to understand something, Marcus. The Council did not classify humans as Category 1 because they are afraid of you. They classified you because they recognize that you are something new, something that has never existed before in the history of the galaxy." "What does that mean for Earth, for my people?" "It means everything is about to change. Other species will want to study you, trade with you, ally with you. Some may want to exploit you or control you. The galaxy is not a simple place, Marcus. There are many dangers." Marcus stood up and walked to the observation glass. He was close enough now that Kethra could see the details of his face. The small hairs, the imperfect skin, the eyes that seemed to contain thoughts she could not read. "Dr. Kethra," he said, "my species has been through a lot. We have fought wars against each other. We have nearly destroyed our own planet. We have faced diseases and disasters and challenges that should have wiped us out, but we are still here." He placed his hand against the glass. "Whatever the galaxy has in store for us, we will adapt. We always do." Kethra looked at his hand, so similar to her own and yet so different. In that moment, she believed him. And for the first time in her long life, she was not sure if that made her feel hopeful or afraid. 3 months after Kethra's presentation to the Science Council, a diplomatic ship from the hegemony of 30 worlds arrived at Vila Prime. The hegemony was one of the oldest and most powerful factions in the galaxy. Their leader, Supreme Commander Zethrak, had requested a personal meeting to discuss the human situation. Kethra was not invited to this meeting, but she found ways to learn what was said. The hegemony was worried. They had built their empire on the assumption that certain things were fixed and unchangeable. Each species had its place. Each world had its purpose. The strong ruled the weak, and that was the natural order of things. Humans threatened that order. If what Kethra had discovered was true, then humans could eventually go anywhere and do anything. They would not be limited by biology like everyone else. They would spread across the galaxy like water filling cracks in stone, seeping into every corner and crevice. Zethrak proposed a simple solution: quarantine Earth, prevent humans from leaving their home system, control their access to technology, keep them contained until the galaxy could figure out what to do with them. The Science Council rejected this proposal. They argued that containing humans would only delay the inevitable. The humans would eventually break free, and when they did, they would be angry. Better to welcome them into the galactic community and hope they became allies rather than enemies. The debate raged for weeks. Meanwhile, the humans continued to learn and grow. They studied the alien technology they had been given. They asked questions that surprised their teachers. They made connections that should have taken years to develop. Kethra continued to observe Marcus Chen. He had become something of a celebrity among the aliens at the research station. Everyone wanted to meet the human. Everyone wanted to understand how his mind worked. One day, she found him in the station's botanical garden, looking at a flower from a distant world. "This is beautiful," Marcus said when he noticed her approaching. "What is it called?" "It is called a memory blossom. It only grows on one planet in the entire galaxy because it requires very specific conditions. The right temperature, the right soil, the right amount of light. If any of these things are wrong, even by a small amount, the flower dies." Marcus touched one of the petals gently. "That seems fragile." "It is, but the flower has been growing on its home world for millions of years. It is perfectly adapted to its environment." "Until the environment changes," Marcus said. Kethra nodded. "Yes, until the environment changes. There was once a species that depended entirely on the memory blossom for medicine. When a disease killed all the flowers on their planet, the species died out within a generation." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "On Earth we have a plant called the dandelion. It is not beautiful like this flower. Most people consider it a weed, but it can grow almost anywhere, in cracks in concrete, in frozen ground, in desert sand. No matter how hard you try to kill it, it keeps coming back." "That sounds like a very successful plant." "It is, and nobody thinks about it. Nobody appreciates it. But when everything else dies, the dandelion survives." Kethra looked at the memory blossom, then at Marcus. "You see yourselves as dandelions." "Maybe, or maybe we are something else entirely, something that has not existed before." He smiled, and Kethra noticed that human smiles could mean many different things. This one seemed sad and hopeful at the same time. "We are still trying to figure that out." 6 months after first contact, the first human ambassador arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters. Her name was Sarah Okonkwo, and she had been chosen because she represented everything the humans wanted the galaxy to understand about them. Sarah had been born in a small village in Africa. She had survived a civil war, escaped a refugee camp, and eventually earned degrees in biology and diplomacy from universities on 3 different continents. She spoke 7 languages and had learned 3 more alien languages in the months since first contact. She walked into the council chamber with her head held high and her back straight. Around her were the representatives of species that had been exploring the galaxy for millions of years. Some of them looked down on her with contempt, some with curiosity, some with fear. Sarah did not seem to notice any of them. She walked to the speaking platform and waited for permission to address the council. When it was given, she spoke. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, I bring greetings from the people of Earth. We are honored to be here today, and we are grateful for the opportunity to join the galactic community." The words were formal and proper, but there was strength in her voice that caught everyone's attention. "I know that many of you have concerns about my people. I know that some of you see us as a threat. You have read the reports about our adaptability. You have heard the theories about what we might become, and you are afraid." The council chamber was utterly silent. "I am not here to tell you that your fears are wrong. I do not know what the future holds. My people are young. We are just beginning to understand our place in this vast universe. We have much to learn." She paused, looking around the room. But I can tell you this. For all of human history, we have faced challenges that seemed impossible to overcome. We have faced ice ages and plagues. We have faced wars and famines. We have faced disasters that should have destroyed us. And every time we found a way to survive. We did not survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by working together, by learning from our mistakes, by adapting to whatever the universe threw at us. We are not here to conquer the galaxy. We are not here to dominate other species. We are here because we are curious. We are here because we want to learn. We are here because we believe that together, all of us can build something greater than any of us could build alone. She held out her hands, palms up. The galaxy is full of wonders that we have never imagined. There are problems that we have never faced. There are challenges that we cannot yet understand. But if there is one thing I know about humans, it is this: we will adapt. We always do. I am asking you to give us a chance. Let us prove that we can be good neighbors. Let us show you what we can contribute to the galactic community. And if we make mistakes along the way, as we surely will, I ask for your patience and your guidance. We are not perfect. We are not even close to perfect. But we are willing to learn, and we are willing to change. She lowered her hands and stood straight again. That is all I have to say. Thank you for listening. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment after she finished speaking. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. It was a human gesture, unfamiliar to most of the aliens present. But others began to join in, each in their own way of showing approval. Kethra watched from her seat in the observer section. She saw the fear in some faces, the hope in others. She saw the beginning of something new. The humans had arrived in the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Council accepted humanity into the galactic community. Kethra had been appointed to lead a new joint research project, studying how humans adapted to different alien environments. Her team included scientists from a dozen species, as well as a growing number of human researchers. She was reviewing data in her office when there was a knock at her door. "Come in," she said without looking up. The door opened and Marcus Chen walked in. He looked different now, stronger, more confident. He had spent 2 years traveling between worlds, testing the limits of human adaptability in environments that would have killed most species. "Dr. Kethra, it has been a while." "Marcus," she stood and gestured for him to sit. "I have been reading your latest reports. The results from the gas giant expedition are remarkable. The pressure suits helped, but you are right. My body started adapting to the increased gravity almost immediately. It was strange, feeling my bones get denser over a matter of weeks. And the psychological effects. Also strange. At first, I felt overwhelmed by the scale of everything. The storms on that world are larger than entire continents on Earth. But after a few days, my mind adjusted. It started seeing patterns, finding order in the chaos. It was like learning a new language, except I was learning it without even trying." Kethra made notes on her tablet. "This confirms what we have been seeing across all our test subjects. Human adaptability is not just physical. Your minds are also incredibly flexible." "Is that a good thing?" "Honestly, I do not know." She set down her tablet and looked at him directly. "Marcus, I have been studying humans for over 2 years now, and I still do not fully understand you. Every time I think I have figured something out, you surprise me again." Marcus laughed. "That sounds frustrating." "It is, but it is also exciting. In 300 years of studying life forms, I have never encountered a species that challenged my assumptions as much as yours does." "What assumptions?" Kethra leaned back in her chair. "I used to believe that specialization was the key to survival. The more perfectly a species was adapted to its environment, the more successful it would be. But humans have taught me that flexibility can be just as valuable, perhaps more valuable." There is a saying on Earth, Marcus said. It is not the strongest or the most intelligent who survive, but the most adaptable to change. Yes, I have heard that saying. At first, I thought it was just a nice philosophy. Now I believe it might be one of the most important truths in the universe. They sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, they could see the alien cityscape of Vila Prime, its towers and spires reaching toward a sky filled with strange stars. Dr. Kethra, Marcus said eventually, why did you invite me here today? It was not just to discuss my reports. Kethra smiled. Humans were getting better at reading alien body language. Another adaptation, another skill learned. You are right. There is something I wanted to discuss with you, something important. She pulled up a new file on her tablet and showed it to him. It was a star map, with one region highlighted in red. This is the far reaches. It is a region of space that no species has been able to explore or colonize. The conditions are too extreme. Radiation storms, unstable gravity wells, toxic atmospheres. Hundreds of expeditions have tried to establish outposts there. All of them have failed. And you think humans might succeed where others have failed? I think it is worth trying. The far reaches contain resources that the galaxy desperately needs. New elements, new energy sources, new materials. If anyone can survive there, it will be your people. Marcus studied the map. This would be dangerous, probably the most dangerous thing any human has ever attempted. Yes, I will not pretend otherwise. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up and met her eyes. When do we start? Kethra felt something she had not expected. Pride. She had studied this human for years. She had watched him face challenge after challenge. And now he was ready to face the greatest challenge of all, not with fear but with determination. Soon, she said. There is much to prepare, but I believe that with your help we can do something that has never been done before. And if we fail, then we learn from our failure and try again. Is that not the human way? Marcus smiled. Yes, I suppose it is. The expedition to the far reaches was announced to the galaxy 3 months later. It would be the largest joint operation in galactic history. Over 1,000 scientists, engineers, and explorers from 50 different species would participate. But at its heart were humans, because only humans had the adaptability needed to survive in that hostile space. Sarah Okonkwo, now serving as Earth's permanent ambassador to the Galactic Council, gave a speech on the day the expedition was announced. Some people have asked me why humans are taking such a risk. Why are we willing to go where no one else can? What do we hope to gain? The answer is simple. We do it because we must. Because it is in our nature to explore, to discover, to push beyond the boundaries of what is known. We do it because every time we face the impossible, we become something more than we were before. The far reaches represent everything we fear, the unknown, the dangerous, the deadly. But they also represent everything we hope for, new discoveries, new possibilities, new chances to grow. Today, humanity takes its next step into the universe. We do not know what we will find. We do not know if we will succeed. But we know that whatever happens, we will face it together, and we will adapt. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy. Trillions of beings watched as the first human expedition ships launched toward the far reaches. Some watched with hope, some with fear, some with envy. But all of them understood one thing: the galaxy had changed, and it was never going back to the way it was before. Kethra watched the launch from her office on Vila Prime. Beside her stood her research team, a mix of aliens and humans who had become colleagues and friends over the past 2 years. Do you think they will succeed? Vorn asked quietly. Kethra thought about Marcus, sitting somewhere on one of those ships, ready to face whatever the universe threw at him. She thought about the thousands of humans who had volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks but going anyway. I think, she said slowly, that success and failure are not the most important things. What matters is that they are trying, that they are willing to face the impossible and attempt it anyway. She looked at the ships as they grew smaller in the distance. That is what makes humans special, not their physical adaptations, not their psychological flexibility, but their spirit, their refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible. And that is something that cannot be measured in a laboratory. It can only be witnessed. It can only be admired. The last ship disappeared into the distance, carrying humanity's hopes toward an uncertain future. And Kethra knew, with absolute certainty, that she was watching the beginning of something extraordinary. The first year of the Far Reaches expedition was the hardest. 17 crew members died. Equipment failed constantly. The conditions were even worse than the models had predicted. But the humans adapted. They found ways to shield their bodies from radiation. They developed new technologies to stabilize the gravity wells. They created breathing systems that could filter the toxic atmospheres. And slowly, impossibly, they began to succeed. By the end of the second year, they had established 3 permanent outposts in regions that had been considered completely uninhabitable. They had discovered new elements that the galaxy had never seen. They had found evidence of ancient civilizations that had lived and died in the far reaches millions of years ago. Each discovery brought new challenges. Each challenge forced new adaptations. And with each adaptation, humanity proved once again that Kethra's original assessment had been correct. They were the most adaptable species in the galaxy. Back on Vela Prime, Kethra continued her research, but now she was not just studying humans. She was working with them, learning from them, collaborating with them. The joint research program had grown beyond anything she had imagined. Human scientists brought perspectives that alien researchers had never considered. They asked questions that seemed obvious once they were asked, but that no one had thought to ask before. They made connections between fields that had always been kept separate. Science was changing because of them. Medicine was changing. Technology was changing. Even philosophy was changing, as species that had thought they understood the universe were forced to reconsider their assumptions. One day, Marcus Chen returned to Vela Prime for a brief visit. He was 40 now, his hair beginning to show streaks of gray. But his eyes were as bright and curious as they had been when Kethra first met him. They walked together through the botanical garden where they had spoken years ago. The memory blossoms were still there, delicate and beautiful and dependent on their perfect environment. "I heard you discovered something incredible in the far reaches," Kethra said. "We found a planet that might be able to support life. The conditions are extreme but not impossible. With the right adaptations, humans could live there." "That is remarkable." "It is, but that is not what I wanted to tell you." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Do you remember what you said to me years ago about how humans are different from other species?" "I remember. You said we were adaptable, that we could change to meet new challenges in ways that other species could not. And you were right. But I have learned something since then, something that I think you would want to know." "What is it?" Marcus looked up at the alien sky above them. "Adaptation is not just about survival, it is about growth. Every time we face a challenge and adapt to overcome it, we become something new, something better, something more. The far reaches nearly killed us. The radiation, the gravity, the toxic atmospheres, everything was trying to destroy us. But instead of just surviving, we thrived. We found new ways of living. We discovered new possibilities. We became more than we were before." He looked back at Kethra. "That is what adaptation really means. Not just changing to survive, but changing to grow. Not just enduring challenges, but being transformed by them." Kethra considered his words. In all her years of research, she had focused on the survival aspects of adaptation. She had measured how species changed to avoid death, but she had never thought about adaptation as a path to growth. You have taught me something new, Marcus, even now after all these years. That is because you were willing to learn. You were willing to change your assumptions based on new evidence. In your own way, you are adaptable too. Kethra made a sound that was the equivalent of a laugh in her species. Perhaps humans are not the only ones who can change. Perhaps not. Maybe that is the most important lesson of all. Adaptability is not just for humans. It is available to anyone who is willing to embrace it. They continued their walk through the garden, past flowers that could only grow in one specific environment, past plants that had never changed in millions of years. And Kethra wondered, not for the first time, what the galaxy might become if all its species learned to adapt the way humans did. 10 years after the Far Reaches expedition began, humanity had established permanent colonies on 12 worlds that had been considered completely uninhabitable. They had developed technologies that other species had thought impossible. They had discovered secrets of the universe that had been hidden for billions of years. And they had done it all through adaptation. Kethra, now one of the most respected scientists in the galaxy, published her final major paper on human adaptability. It was called The Endless Evolution, and it summarized everything she had learned about humanity over 2 decades of study. The paper made one central argument. Humans were not just another species. They were a new kind of life form, a species that was not limited by its biology but empowered by it, a species that could become whatever it needed to become. In her conclusion, she wrote words that would be quoted for centuries to come. We have spent millions of years believing that evolution was a slow process. That change happened over generations, not within a single lifetime. That each species was locked into its own narrow niche, unable to escape the boundaries of its biology. Humans have proven us wrong. They have shown us that adaptation can be rapid, conscious, and directed. They have demonstrated that the limits we believed were fixed are actually flexible. They have taught us that the universe is not a cage that traps us, but a classroom that teaches us. When I first began studying humans, I was afraid of what they might become. I worried that their adaptability would make them dangerous, unpredictable, impossible to control. I was wrong. Humans are not dangerous because they adapt. They are remarkable because they adapt, and they have used that remarkable ability not to dominate the galaxy but to expand it. They have gone where we could not go. They have done what we could not do. They have become what we could not become. The discovery of human adaptability was not a warning. It was an invitation to reconsider our own limitations, an invitation to embrace change rather than fear it, an invitation to grow. Humans have shown us what is possible when a species refuses to accept that anything is impossible. They have demonstrated that the greatest evolutionary advantage is not strength or speed or intelligence, but the willingness to become something new. And in doing so, they have changed not just themselves, but all of us. The galaxy will never be the same, and for that we should be grateful. On Earth, in a small office at the United Nations headquarters, Sarah Okonkwo read Kethra's paper and smiled. She was in her 70s now, her hair white and her face lined with age, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She thought about the young girl she had once been, running through the fields of her village with no idea of what the future would hold. She thought about the wars she had survived, the challenges she had overcome, the transformations she had undergone. She thought about her species, once limited to a single planet, now spread across dozens of worlds. Once considered primitive, now recognized as one of the most remarkable forms of life in the galaxy. And she thought about the future, the challenges that still lay ahead, the changes that would still need to be made, the adaptations that would still need to occur. The galaxy was vast and dangerous and full of unknowns, but humanity would face it the same way they had faced every challenge before. They would adapt. They would grow. They would become something new. And nothing, not even the universe itself, could stop them. Marcus Chen stood on the surface of a planet that should not have been able to support life. The air was thin and cold. The gravity was nearly twice what he was used to. The radiation from the nearby star would have killed most beings within hours. But he was alive. His body had adapted as it always did. His lungs worked harder, his heart beat stronger, his cells repaired themselves faster. He looked up at the alien sky and saw stars that humanity had thought it would never reach. He saw possibilities that had once seemed impossible. He saw a future that was still being written. Dr. Kethra would have loved this, he said to himself. His old friend had passed away 5 years ago, at the end of a long and remarkable life. She had spent her final years studying the adaptations that humans had developed in response to the far reaches. She had never stopped being curious. She had never stopped learning. She had taught him so much. About science, about the galaxy, about himself. She had been the first to truly understand what humans were capable of, and she had dedicated her life to helping them achieve their potential. Now it was his turn to carry on that work, to push the boundaries further, to go where no one had gone before. Behind him, a team of young explorers was setting up camp. They came from a dozen different worlds, a dozen different species. Humans and aliens working together, learning together, adapting together. That was Kethra's true legacy. Not just the discovery of human adaptability, but the understanding that adaptability was something all species could learn. That the future belonged not to those who stayed the same, but to those who were willing to change. Marcus watched his team work and felt a deep sense of pride, not just in humanity, but in all of them, in every being who had chosen to face the unknown rather than hide from it, in every species that had decided to grow rather than stagnate. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and they were going to explore every inch of it. Together, he took one last look at the alien sky, then turned and walked toward his team. There was work to be done, and they would adapt to do it. 1,000 years later, historians would look back on the first contact between humans and the galactic community as one of the most important events in the history of the universe. They would study Dr. Kethra's research and marvel at her foresight. They would analyze Sarah Okonkwo's speeches and admire her wisdom. They would read about Marcus Chen's expeditions and celebrate his courage. But most of all, they would wonder. They would wonder what the galaxy would have been like if humans had never arrived, if that small blue planet had remained isolated and alone, if the most adaptable species in the universe had never been discovered. The answer, they would conclude, was obvious. The galaxy would have been poorer, smaller, less remarkable. Because it was not just human adaptability that had changed everything. It was the human spirit, the refusal to accept limitations, the willingness to try the impossible, the belief that no challenge was too great to overcome. That spirit had spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. Species that had been set in their ways for millions of years had begun to change. Worlds that had been considered worthless had been transformed into thriving colonies. Technologies that had been deemed impossible had been invented and improved. All because one small species on one small planet had refused to stay in its place. The memory blossoms still grew on their home world, delicate and dependent and unchanged since ancient times. But now, in gardens across the galaxy, new flowers bloomed. Flowers that had been engineered to adapt. Flowers that could grow in any environment, on any world, under any conditions. They were called Chen blossoms, after the human who had inspired their creation. And they were just as beautiful as the memory blossoms, but so much more resilient. Just like humanity itself. The galaxy had been transformed, and it was still transforming every day, every year, every century. Because that was what happened when you embraced change instead of fearing it, when you chose growth instead of stagnation, when you decided to adapt. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, new explorers were still pushing forward, still discovering new worlds, still facing new challenges, still adapting, always adapting. Because that was what made them human. And that was what made them extraordinary.